We normally see him on Open on Fridays as he delivers his Fantasy Football Minute in the Sports Roundup with Bobby C. But he's here with us today to serve up a dose of Monday morning fantasy football. Please help me welcome Mike Crocker. Mike, thanks for being with us. And I know that it's a Monday instead of Friday, but then again, we have a Monday night game this week, so we can talk a little bit about that, I guess, and the fantasies of that. Although I don't recall who is playing tonight. I know that last night should have been a fantasy, right?
Well, I mean, the 49ers and the Saints are playing tonight at 8:30.
Okay. So, Mike, tell us, how did you come to BronxNet, and how did you get into fantasy football, which I'm still trying to figure out, by the way?
Well, I mean, last summer I came here, just looking to gain experience, something to, put on the resume. And, at first I was like, do I really want to do this? Is it, going to help me as far as my career path goes? So I figured, just try it. Came in here last summer, learned all aspects of all the technology here, and there's so much to it. And I've learned so much last summer, and even in this summer, that I feel if I were to get a job today, I would have all the experience that I would need to go out there and make it in the real world.
And this is through the internship program that BronxNet has with the college.
Yeah, it's a very good program. You come in here. We take a lot of people. All you really need is an interest, a general interest, and just a commitment to just trying to learn as much as you can here.
That's great. That's great. And fantasy football, where did that fit in?
Well, I mean, I've always been a football fan, and it just I've always mentioned that I've always wanted to I always give people fantasy advice. I always tell people who they should start and sit, and then I was thinking maybe we could someone segue that into the sports show or something like that, and just try to see if I can give people advice on a more a wider scale.
Maybe we should have given some of that advice last night to Tom Coughlin at the Giants.
The Manning Bowl. I kind of had a feeling the Colts were going to win, but just Eli, he just gives into pressure sometimes. He's not really a kind of fourth quarter quarterback, but the Colts were just dominant. Oh, except for the Super Bowl, that 08 one with the Tyree catch. That was something else.
Yeah. Well, anyway, why don't you tell us a little bit about the fantasy, what's happening, and so that our viewers can get a flavor, for what it is that this fantasy football is all about.
Absolutely. Well, fantasy football, like I've said before, it's something that you can do. Water cooler talk. You can just have fun with your friends, pick a team, and what would happen if you were the owner of an NFL team? That's really what it's all about. And right now, I'll give you a quick little recap of what happened this week and what you can look forward to tonight. So, I mean, week 2 is filled with so many surprises, including, sibling rivalries, high-scoring games. But one of the big common themes this week, especially in fantasy, was great play from underrated running backs. Now, who is the best of the best in week 2? How about Lions running back Javid Best, who put up a ridiculous 9 catches, 232 scrimmage yards, 3 touchdowns in a 35-32 loss to the Eagles. Best, a rookie out of California, now has scored 5 times in just 2 games, and he'll go up against the Vikings in Week 3. Some other under-the-radar running backs that blew up yesterday was Atlanta running back Jason Snelling and Philadelphia running back LaShawn McCoy, who surprised a lot of fans and fantasy owners alike with solid stats on the ground and even a little bit through the air. Speaking of underdogs, one of the teams that's starting to make an impression on me is the Houston Texans. The Texans are your typical Cinderella team that played well in their first 2 weeks, including a Week 1 victory over AFC division rival Indianapolis Colts. And a come-from-behind win over the Redskins yesterday, which ended with a game-winning overtime field goal, and quarterback Matt Schwab throwing for almost 500 yards, folks. But let's see how the Texans fare next week against the Dallas Cowboys, and if they can play like they did yesterday, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Texans thinking playoffs for the first time in their franchise history. Now I'll do some quick hits from the NFL and around the league and regarding injuries and other news. Darrelle Revis tweaked his hamstring against the Patriots yesterday, but there's no word on whether or not he'll miss time, but he said, quote, he's going to handle the injury day by day and see how it goes. Also, other top players who were injured yesterday were running backs Michael Turner with a groin injury and Ryan Matthews with a sprained ankle. Both might miss time, but stay tuned to find out more. And tonight, like I mentioned before, the Saints are on the road taking on the San Francisco 49ers on ESPN at 8:30 p.m. So with that, I'm Mike Crocker, and that was your Fantasy Football Update.
Mike, that's a great update, and I appreciate it. And the one thing that stands out from all of this, the reports that you gave, the results, etc., is I have to feel a lot of sympathy for the Detroit Lions. Now, here's a team, I think that they haven't won, I think that now they've lost 18 games in a row because they went winless last season. Is that
They
correct?
almost had it yesterday. Yes,
Well,
last
that's
season.
exactly what I
Yeah.
mean. They almost had it yesterday.
Yeah.
And then in the first game of the week, they really won that game. And let's face
Technically.
it, it was a bad call by the refs.
Yeah, it was a bad call. It's just one of those rules that, officials really haven't looked over because just, when's that ever going to happen?
I mean, it was heartbreaking for them. Here they
Yeah.
thought they had a victory in hand for the first time to start off the season, and a call like that turns them away.
And especially, they lost their franchise quarterback last week in week 1, too. They lost Matthew Stafford to a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
And just when you thought Calvin Johnson, reeled it in for the win, refs overturned it. They ended up losing the game.
And how ironic it is that all of the back and forth that was going on, the holdouts and everything with Revis, and now in the second week, he suffers a hamstring, which hey, they don't heal overnight.
Well, Ramon, I'm not surprised in the least bit because you gotta show up to camp, you gotta get healthy, you gotta be in shape, and when you just go on the field like that without all that months and months of practice, it's going to happen. Injuries are going to happen, and especially Revis going up against Moss yesterday is a top wide receiver, and I'm not surprised, but I shouldn't see him missing any time. I really think he'll come back next week.
Well, I'm sure that the Jets fans certainly hope so, considering what the money that they must have paid him now to come back, right?
Oh man.
And then next week, of course, we have the Alamo, I guess, in Texas, huh? Right, with the Texans and
Dallas
and
Cowboys.
Dallas. Of course, it would be great if they were playing in San Antonio, where the Alamo actually is, but nonetheless, a real in-state rivalry. And you're right, the Texans yesterday came back from about a 27-point deficit against the Redskins that I'm sure McNabb thought that this one was in the bag.
Yeah.
And there was another one too, because hey, the coach of the Texans, he pulled a real shrewd one when the field goal was going for a 53-yarder,
Kubiak,
kicked it, made it through the uprights, and the coach had called a timeout right as his foot was touching the ball.
And a lot of coaches are doing that these days. I mean, Kubiak's not the only guy, but I mean, it's a cheap move as it is. But then again, folks, you got to think from a coach's perspective. They won the game. I'd much rather take a win over just some kind of call than sports time.
And take whatever heat comes from it, right?
Yeah.
So
might as well.
and of course Shanahan didn't want to do the same thing in return.
Yeah. I saw Shanahan after the game. He tried to keep his composure together. I saw a little bit of that anger there, but I'm sure Kubiak's happy with his call.
Well, supposedly he was his mentor. Shanahan was Kubiak's mentor, so
Yeah.
he learned something from someone.
Shanahan's
right?
been around for a while, so yeah.
No, he certainly has. He certainly has. Well, Mike, as always, thank you so much for the update, and I hope that our viewers certainly appreciate that insight that you've given, and
Absolutely.
we'll see what happens tonight with the Saints and the 49ers. Should be another good game.
Absolutely.
All right, Mike.